My body in glitter. Platform sneakers, all the boys want a picture. Foreign cars, I make rich look richer. Save your breath, baby, I'm not going home with ya.
Hi, my name is Emily Wurramara and I'm a IWFW woman from Groote Eylandt and Bickerton Island in the Gulf of Carpentaria. I am a singer, songwriter, producer, composer and soon-to-be author, and I now live on Lutruwita, Tawana, aka Tasmania.
My name's Dixie Crawford. I'm a Barkindji woman from Broken Hill in Wurramara in far western New South Wales, and I live and work on Ngunnawal country. I am a business owner, an Aboriginal engagement consultant, and I get to work with organisations on reconciliation action plans.
Being connected to this program has positively impacted me in so many ways. Just having, being in a space around and having the conversations around money, I live in a very remote place in Lutruwita, and so I don't have that network of support, and, you know, being on Instagram and on social media and being connected in that way has been really inspiring. It's been really incredible seeing, you know, people like yourself and Larisha just being in there and holding space, but also educating, inspiring, championing, like really putting forward, I think for me visually, if I'm going to put it into words, it makes me feel just so deadly because we're having these conversations. And I grew up, and I'm sure you did too, not being in spaces where these conversations were being had, purely because for me, I didn't think that I was allowed to have these conversations, or I didn't feel like I could be a part of that business world because, you know, from what media and what images were given to us when we were little, it was white men in suits.
Yeah, I think that it's almost given us permission to dream big, right? To recognise that there is something else, there is an alternative idea or perception of self out there in the world that is different to the narrative that's being created by us or by other people for us. And I always talk about this actually, is that someone else's beliefs of you don't need to become your reality, right? Someone else's perception of you don't necessarily make up your identity. And it's important that we spend time on deciding who it is that we are, the values that we demonstrate, the behaviours that we will live by, who it is that we want to be in the world, and we take control of that for ourselves. For me, when I remember going back, if I track the timeline actually of participating in a masterclass back in, I think it was 2021 actually, when I participated in my first masterclass, and it was on a very cold night on Ngunnawal country, and there was a session that was run by Larisha and by Barbara Kirby, and we were talking about a personal P&L sheet. And I never thought about a P&L sheet in the context of my own life, right? I always thought about, certainly in business, in terms of forecasting and expenditure and what was coming in, what was going out, what my operation budget needed to look like, what my tax was going to be. I knew where all of my money was being placed in my business, and I was very tight on that. But in my personal life, so many money leads, right? And so Barbie Lee said, suggested that we do a personal P&L sheet. So I did that. I downloaded my bank statement. I went through and I highlighted all of these things that I needed to spend money on, all the things that I love spending money on, all the things that it was like an impulse purchase that I didn't really need, but I just spent the money anyway. And it was really interesting because then I saw how much money was just coming in and going out. Some of it was going to the right places, but a lot of it was being spent in ways that I didn't really need to be spending. So the program for me gave me some tools and tactics to be able to apply to make smarter, more informed decisions about where my money was going. And in order to know where my money was going, I then got to decide whether or not this was a decision that was either in alignment with what my long-term financial goals were for myself and my family, or whether or not it was moving me further and further away from that financial goal. So I think the practical tools spark some sort of critical self-reflection for me. But then I also agree with you about looking at what, having those conversations and being around people where we're talking about money, because again, we come back to that the behaviour, there always been a lot of shame factors, shame and limiting beliefs around money in our communities. And so I started to consciously shift away from those yarns and started to believe different ideas and started to buy into different ideas. And it's not to say that some are right and some are wrong, but it's also about making an informed decision about what are those things that actually mean that serve you. What are you buying into that is in alignment with what it is that you want and where it is that you want to go with your life?
Most definitely, yeah. It's very empowering being in this space. And I think, mob who are tuning in, young ones who are going to tune into this, they're going to feel really inspired and empowered. And I just wish that I had something like this when I was growing up. And I'm so proud that we're a part of this and we get to do this.
And we get to have different conversations that present different opportunities and ideas about what's possible for us, because I have to, be honest, my self-worth was very much externally motivated, right? Like, wasn't motivated by what other people thought of me, how they saw me, what they believed I could do, what they believed I couldn't do. And I bought into that for such a long period of time. But yeah, it's normal. That's normal because it actually takes a lot of courage to define who it is that you are as a woman and where it is that you want to go. Because sometimes that new territory that territory where you want to go, you may not know a woman that's been there before that looks and sounds like you. You may not know a woman who runs around and talks about making $1 million. I don't know any Black women that openly talk about making $1 million. I truly don't. I know there are a lot of Aboriginal women that do make millions of dollars in their businesses, but do they talk about it? No, it's a very different story. And I get the, maybe they're uncomfortable about it, tall poppy syndrome. They don't want to be a victim of lateral violence or criticism and all of those things. But also, we do have to recognise that, there are other women of colour and people from marginalised groups in different parts of the world, and the local context is different. So I do acknowledge that. But women in America, they have no issues whatsoever talking about making millions and millions of dollars. Like, it's normal. It's habits for them. And so I spent a lot of time in 2021 and 22 looking at what women in America were doing, how unapologetic they have been about their wealth creation. Yeah, they're so unapologetic and so commanding about spaces that they want to be in. And I love that energy, and I want that for us. I would definitely want that for me. And I would like to see that for a lot of other Aboriginal women as well, to feel comfortable to take up space in rooms that we're not normally or in conversations that we're not actively invited to or a part of us.
And we're allowed to do that. Full permission and full power to anyone that does that, because, that mentality is still so present today. It's very, very existing. And it's really worrying because, you have women like yourself, and there are so many incredible women who really stand in their power and really take the lead in the space. But we don't have the exposure, you know what I mean? We don't have a TV show, or we don't have, that exposure to these communities and to the outer audience and global audience, that there are Black women in this country who are killing it.
There are so many. And sorry, I was going to say there are so many of them, but there are so many of us, because I'm one of those women. You're one of those women, right? This is the reality, is that we have worked so hard and we've made decisions that are once again in alignment with where it is that we want to go. And they've been tough decisions. We've had to make tough calls. We've had to take up space. We've had to resist the urge to go back into a smaller box and play smaller. But I don't subscribe to that at all, because there's actually too much at stake. For us as Aboriginal women, there's so much more that we could have access to and that we could create from a wealth perspective in this country for ourselves and for our families, if we probably get out of our own way.
Yeah. And 100%.
That's what I think. I think anything is possible for us. We're so gritty, we're so resilient, we're so determined. We have overcome so much as Aboriginal women. There's nothing that we can't do.
100%.
And no reason I can't make $1 million in 90 days.
Who says you can't?
Well, we're going to try. Actually, mark my words. I had a conversation with one of my team members the other day about really big, audacious goals. I have set myself the goal of making $1 million in 90 days. I'm going to do it.
They're going to do it. I'm telling you. I believe in you. 100%.
Thank you for believing in
Yeah. I mean, we've got to have that. Like, you know, we've got to be, and I think it's like things like this, we need to be put in spaces like this so we can cheer each other on and support each other, because that's, I think, like that, having that support and having that sisterhood and friendship, especially in these spaces, means so much, because you're coming in with an army. Like, you know, you're coming in and you know you got your flag up.
Yeah, but so like I'm hyped for it. Like, I don't know when or how, but I know it's going to happen. I just have faith and belief in myself that I am going to achieve that 7-figure income in a 90-day period.
Love that.
I'm working towards it, and it's going to happen. And I think, yeah, it's happening. Like, mark my words, it will happen. It will happen in this financial year. Well, not this financial year. It will happen in the 2023 and 2024 financial year. It's happening.
Well, I'm so keen. I'm so excited.
I'm keen too. Then we have a big party. Look around and find out.
I'll come see you.
I'll come see you. I'll come down for you. Like, is this the other thing, right? You know, like when I look at some women in America and even in different parts of Europe, you know, Black women, brown women over there, they just talk about millions of dollars, like,
yeah, like it's
second nature.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just like easy, and we're trying to find our way here. And I think in this country,
but I also feel like, because this country, like we have Centrelink, like we're very privileged to have that government there and to have those money and those funds. In America, they literally, it's ride or die, like, you know,
yes,
fight or flight,
yeah,
like kind of mentality. And like, you know, there's a lot of privileges that come with being in this country, but also there's also that contradiction being Black, that those privileges aren't meant for us.
Yeah,
like they weren't meant for us.
Yeah, we've been excluded from money.
100%.
We've been excluded from opportunity, and despite what, you know, your average, you know, middle-aged white mediocre man will say, they, you know, like we have been excluded. We haven't got all the opportunities that people say that we have, right? Like we may have, there may be conversations about it, but in terms of the tangible outcomes and practical outcomes that actually move the needle towards a more fair and just society where Aboriginal people move from below the line of poverty, it doesn't happen. It's not happening.
No.
It's not real.
There's just like,
why are you believing it? It's not Narnia.
Yeah, like it's not Narnia. You can't just walk in a cupboard and bam.
It's not happening. It's not happening. It's clearly not working.
Yeah.
And it hasn't ever.
And that's the thing, like that's what we're doing, you know, being in these spaces and having these conversations. We're making space, and we're like, you know, we don't want to see one person in that boardroom that's Black. Let us all in. We're all allowed to be there.
Yeah. It's not real joyful actually when you're the one.
No, one who only started in a boardroom, I'll be honest. It's a lot of it.
Can be fun. But you want to, take your people with you.
Take your people, yeah.
Take your people with you, and demand more space for them at the table.
Yeah.
For us to be there.
Yeah. We got to set, then I guess, lead by example in that regards, because, you know, there are territories and there are pathways that are yet to be explored by us mob. And I know that comes with its challenges, but it also comes with huge triumph.
Yeah. Oh my God, so much. Yeah, there's risk.
Yeah.
That's sis.
Yeah.
The reward.
So worth it. Like, it's so worth it. The reward.
If you can find yourself and believe in yourself to be in these rooms undeniably,
that's powerful.
Like, but smell the roses. Suck it all in. Like, enjoy that moment because it's you deserve it.
Yeah.
And that old saying, you can't be what you can't see. Well,
and you're worth it. Like Dania, you know.
Oh, like everyone's old aunties. Go on then.